Welcome everyone to Exploring Grants and Support Available. I'm here tonight with Melanie Trethowan. Melanie joins us from Heart of the Bush Marketing. She's in Mudgee tonight and I'm in Dubbo. And as we've been doing all week, we would love to know where you're calling in from. So if everyone could head to slido.com and let us know where you're calling in from tonight. If you get to slido.com and enter the hashtag grants, you should be able to let us know where you're calling in from tonight. We've got a few starting to roll in, which is great. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, so welcome. Welcome to everyone. We'll just give everyone a little bit of time to roll in, and if you're just joining us, slido.com, hashtag grants or grants, depending on how affluent you might be. And what's the weather like over in Mudgee tonight, Melanie?
Gorgeous, always gorgeous in Mudgee, but a slight breeze, beautiful blue sky.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Very good. I'll just stop sharing my screen for a minute and I will share our Slido screen just in a moment. And that will allow us to see where everyone's calling in from tonight. You can just see a bit of my background there, just briefly present in full screen. Having some little teething issues tonight. If you're joining us on Facebook, put in on the fun, slido.com. Once you get in there, you'll be asked for a event code and you'll need to enter the word grants, or grants, G-R-A-N-T-S. And in the interest of time, there is a bit of a delay on Facebook. So if you're just joining us and you're on Facebook and you don't get your answer in time, that's fine. But there is a 20-second delay. Let's go into the next question. Where are you dialing in from at the moment? Are you at home? Are you at work? Are you sitting on the tractor? Are you on the run? Are you calling in from somewhere else? Let us know. Sitting on the tractor, that's good. I've been seeing harvest is in full swing. Up in the northern parts of the state, and good to hear some good yields coming off some places, and sympathies to those that might have frost damage or otherwise. Good to see. Hearing we've got about 10 watching on Facebook, as well as the few that are in here. If you're just joining us and wondering what's going on in the screen, you need to head to slido.com and enter in the hashtag grants, and you'll be able to join in on the interaction today. How'd you hear about this event? Email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook? Did a friend tell you about it? Did you hear via smoke signals? Let us know. Very good. There must be a few shy people out there not willing to join in on the fun. Only 5 responses. But let's just get one more. And what age group are you calling in from? What age group is joining us tonight? We're the Young Farmer Business Program, but we welcome those from all ages. So let us know who's coming tonight. Only one response so far. 2 responses. Oh, a real mixed bag tonight. It looks like most in our target age bracket, which is great. Very good. Got 5 rolling in. So let's just skip this one for now. But Melanie was really interested in what industry everyone was in tonight. So are you in beef, dairy, cropping, sheep, other livestock, vegetables, orchards and tree crops, or fishing? Let us know. Over at Mudgee, there'd be a bit of a mixed bag, but mainly sheep and cattle over there, Melanie.
And plenty of grapes turned into great wine.
Ah, that's right. Beautiful wine district, Mudgee. I must profess also where my family is from in Mudgee, and we're sheep and cattle producers over there. But Mudgee, beautiful wine district, and also some honey as well, known to come from around Mudgee. And that's the last slide to know about our polls tonight. Now, before I hand over to Melanie, I just want to let everyone know there's a number of ways you can ask questions tonight. Best asked questions, opportunities to talk to people like Melanie, who are experts in their subject, don't come up very often. Now, you can ask questions anonymously, confidentially in 2 ways. One, you can ask them in the question and answer section in Slido, or you can send a chat message through to me and I'll ask them of Melanie. And the other way, if you're watching on Facebook, just whack something in the comments, or if you want to ask us something confidentially, flick us a direct message and we will happily answer your query if it's something that fits in along the way, or we might just leave some time for the end. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Melanie. Melanie joins us from Mudgee tonight. She is from Heart of the Bush Marketing, her company, and she brings us really a lifetime worth of experience and in the area of applying for grants, and we're very blessed to have her tonight. So welcome, Melanie, and take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim. Before I get cracking, if I keep dabbing my eyes or sneezing or whatever, this fabulous season that you're enjoying is giving me curry as far as hay fever, which I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing as well. So just excuse me if I keep going like this. I'm not getting emotional. So, okay, so I'm going to share with you some of my experience on writing grants. And a little bit about myself. Born and bred off a wheat and sheep farm at Dubbo, so that's my old stamping ground. But I've been in Mudgee for 29 years and started my own sort of freelance consulting business in '96, and which is possibly before some of you guys were even born. So I apologise for that if I'm out of the arc. I've had some nice wins. One of the biggest win as far as grants are concerned was about $850,000 into a whole range of community events. So that was fantastic. And basically, I specialise in what's getting in from someone's head and getting it down onto paper. So often I work with people who are really great at what they do, but they just don't have the time or the headspace to go, okay, how do we structure this document to influence, to get money, etc., etc. I'm going to fang through this pretty quickly because I want to leave some time at the end for Q&A. But if you've got any burning questions as we go along, please pop them in the chat box as Tim said. So off we go. I wanted to start off first off with actually thinking about where money comes from. And I've come up and this is not science, but it's just my thinking and my experience, is there's something called reactive money, and then there's something called proactive money. And reactive money is basically grant funds or foundation funds that are released at certain periods throughout the year. They have a very clear open date, close date, which are absolutely inflexible, and they often have very fixed amount of money that you can apply for. So that's what I call reactive money, just waiting for it to roll in. The flip side is actually proactive money. So that's going out and actively chasing money and developing and sending out detailed funding proposals, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later on. So the other sources of money obviously are your government grants. They're by far and away the most prolific. So from your local government, state and federal governments. Then there's a whole lot of private sectors groups, so big end of town, that provide grant funds as well. So don't just think I have to wait for the government to release grants. So start searching for other organisations that that will provide grant funds, and then of course as well as that, there's philanthropy and foundations such as the Vincent Fairfax Foundation and the Foundation for Regional Renewal, which often they're much more community focused. I'm going to keep coming back to the point or the issue that this is a competitive process, and I might actually start to sound like a bit of a nag, but you've got to think about that you are competing for whatever money you're applying for. You're competing against hundreds and possibly thousands, if it's a federal grant, of other applicants, and so this is all about competition. So tonight's presentation is around a range of tips. So there's about 14 in total that from my years of experience and blood, sweat and tears I've come up with. The first one is a bit basic, but it's basically read the guidelines and be really realistic about whether this grant actually applies to you. Sometimes people get very excited when they see a grant that might be worth, you know, $250,000, and that, I mean, who wouldn't get excited about that? But when you actually drill down into the detail, it really is not for you. You are going to save yourself a heck of a lot of time and heartache if you have expectations that are realistic about whether it is worthwhile for you to put an application in. I also recommend for when clients come to me, or you know, if I'm doing presentations like this, if you see a really nice looking grant, check the website, and they will often publish what they've funded in the past and groups that they've worked with. So you can actually see if they've got a track record of funding businesses such as yourself or projects such as the one that you're thinking about. So read the guidelines is the first tip. Second tip is read the guidelines again. I usually read guidelines for an application for a grant program between 4 and 5 times. I know I probably need to get out more and get a life, but what that does is that really gets me into the headspace of the grant and the funder. And you start to read between the lines and really understand their objectives, their keywords. You know, do they keep talking about sustainability? Do they keep talking about natural resource management? Do they talk about capacity building? You get these, and they're buzzwords. I know they're buzzwords. But if your project doesn't start to marry up and nail some of those buzzwords, again, maybe this grant is not for you. If it does, on the flip side, if you think, okay, this is looking pretty good, I really recommend that you use those keywords as much as possible in your application. In the answers, the way you respond, you reflect back to the funder those keywords so they can say, okay, this is the person who's writing this gets what the program's all about. Use those keywords as a measuring stick against, again, your proposed project and the grant program. And if they don't measure up, if there's not some sort of compatibility, then maybe, again, this is not for you. If you're unsure about anything, some, I won't say all of them, but some departments are quite open to receiving a phone call and ask the question, you know, I'm looking at this program, I'm thinking about doing X. Am I on the right track? Some of them are really great and will say, yes, that's fantastic, you know, and they'll chat a little bit about it. They won't give away any too much information because, again, it's a competitive process. But I found when I've rung and asked the question, if they've said, well, no, this is not the right bucket for you, or the right grant, but we do have this other one that's going to be open in 3 months' time or whatever. So sometimes you just get that little tip simply by asking the question. Think like the funding body. What is it about your project that meets their objectives, and what will make them look good? The guys that are receiving, and guys and girls who are receiving your applications, they're only human, and the departments want to support projects that not only meet their objectives, but ones that are great news stories that make them, their departments, and their ministers, because this is a political process in many ways, to make them look good. They want to back winners, and they want good news stories to share. They also have a financial responsibility to make sure that their department, that bucket of grant funds, gets the best value for money for their grant investment. So you need to be thinking about your ask, so the amount of money that you're asking for. Is it reasonable? What you're proposing to do for the money that you're asking for, is that a value for money proposition? Or even better, does your project actually deliver more outcomes and more positive benefit than the money that's invested? So you have to put yourself in their shoes just for a short period of time. And as I said, ultimately everybody wants to back a winner. Tip number 4, when you're writing, state a solid case, but don't fudge the truth. You want to paint a really good picture that whatever you're doing is busted, and it's broken, and it will all be ruined hand in hand type of thing. But you must be able to justify what you say in your application. Would you be happy to host a visit or answer further questions on their application? And a really good analogy, I don't know if you've heard of it, is that Sydney Morning Herald analogy. Would you be happy if project was splattered all over the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald? And if you can't answer the questions honestly, then again, maybe the project is not for you. 5th tip, focus on solutions. As I said in the previous slide, you want to paint a picture that proves that you really need this money, but be positive. Yep, this is all badly broken, but with your help, this is how we fix it. If you think of it from a funder's perspective, again, they're sitting behind their desk or where stand-up desk, and they're getting hundreds and thousands of applications, and they're constantly bombarded with people's problems. If you can come at them with this solution, and hopefully a really interesting or innovative solution to the problem, how refreshing is that going to be, and how much is that going to position your application in relation to the competition, that you're coming at it with solutions, and your competition, somebody else's application from a couple of 100 kilometres down the road, is just basically saying it's broken and you have to fix it for us. Bearing in mind, I mean, I've lived all my life in rural areas, and we do get the raw end of the pineapple sometimes with as far as funding and things concerned, and access to services, etc. But simply saying it's not fair is not a good argument for funding. You really do need to have some sort of solution underpinning your project. Top tip 6 is all about the budgets and numbers, and that's often where people just start to tear their hair out. Make sure when you are you're doing the number crunching with your budget, that you think about all your funding sources, where you can possibly beg, borrow and steal money. Okay, that's probably not a good choice of words, but where you can actually start to build your budget. And also, if you can contribute cash and in kind. And what I mean by that is, can you, and I know times are tough, but can you actually match it with a bit of dollars, a few dollars, or some of your time, whether that be fencing or whacking up a shed or whatever's relevant to your project? Have you got the materials already on hand that all can then contribute to the realisation of your project? And why I'm saying that's really important, even though it's tough, is again, it comes back to competition. if they're looking at your application and you're saying, I'm throwing in 5,000 cash and 500 hours, and I've got 50 bits of 4B2 or whatever to all go into the project, they will look at that versus the competitions that's just got their hand out saying, give us money. So you need a little bit of creative accounting there as well, but think laterally and think creatively about how you can contribute to the budget. Importantly, sounds like a no-brainer, but make sure your budgets add up and or balance. There's nothing that's going to impact your credibility or your project's credibility more than if you can't even get this simple thing correct. And often another point around the numbers is financial sustainability is often vital. Government departments get very nervous about handing over money for a project that may fall over when the project timeline or deadline has been met. So think about what happens afterwards, how you can keep it going. The other point about coming back to that cash and in kind, your contribution, it shows that you have some ownership in the project, ownership not only now but also in the future. It shows you've got some skin in the game, and you're committed to the success of the project. Again, if you say that and your competition doesn't, you are going to be miles ahead of them. The last dot point there is really interesting, and it's a really eye-opener for people, is that when we talk about in-kind time, so if you're going to go and be doing, your own labour or your family's labour, or there's a working bee or something on your property for your project, that time that people contribute is valued at $41 an hour. So, and that sounds like a big number, but that's actually I've taken that from the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal, so it's an official number. So if you think about, if you've got 10 people contributing 10 hours, all of a sudden your contribution to the budget has just gone sky high at $41 an hour. But don't overstate it, because, as I say, it's competitive. If they look at yours and you've said you're going to be doing 1,000 hours and your competition's only saying 10, they're going to be starting to wonder, well, who's telling the right story here?
Melanie,
yeah.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yep.
So $41 an hour, is that sort of universal across different types of jobs? So if it's a labourer or if it's an office, admin, depending, volunteers do different things for different projects. Does it change?
I don't have that answer. I can't state categorically that is correct, but my understanding is the $41 an hour is your labourers, your basic admin, your basically your workers. Any other sort of consultancy. So if you had someone that was an agronomist that normally charged themselves out at $100 an hour or something, and they're going to come and give you 10 hours for free, you sure as eggs would put their contribution of hours in at $100 an hour. But if you're going to get your brother or your kids to, help you plough up a paddock or build something or do some sort of, I don't know, depends on your project. If it's pure labour and more sort of worker, entry-level type basic skills, then the $41 an hour is the go. Once you get into more highly qualified, well, then I'd be saying to the agronomist, well, what would you normally charge me for this job? And they'd say, $500, $1,000, whatever, and that then goes in your budget as in kind.
Right, thank you.
All right. Okay, so some more on numbers. When you're building your argument around why they should be giving you the money, like why your project is much more important than anybody else's, start to think about statistics. So what's happening in your industry, in your local economy, perhaps in your community that could impact on your project. So have you got major things happening in town? I did a big job for a medical centre here in Mudgee a couple of years ago, and Mudgee was and still is booming as far as the amount of people coming to town, and that has having major effects on the availability of GPs, the amount of people that were basically wanting medical services and appointments, etc. So we could actually, and we had records of the wait times to get in to see a GP. So we could actually build a case saying, you know, this is how much Mudgee has grown in the last, you know, 6 months, or sorry, 6 years, or since the last census. You know, current wait times are X to get to see a GP. It's forecast that our population is going to grow by X in the future. So all of a sudden, you're starting to build a very analytical picture of your community or of your industry. So if, you know, coming around to a product basis, if there's a real boom in the demand for organic foods, you know, maybe there's an opportunity there for, if you're a wheat farmer or a grain grower, or, you know, organic beef or whatever, to include some of that market-driven data in your application to support your project. So, you know, and then, so that's the positive stuff about growing. Is there a negative side as far as a major employer has left town and all of a sudden, you know, 50 people have lost their jobs? Does your project propose to employ some of those? A lot of these, what really gets funders excited is jobs, and then also obviously business sustainability. So if you can somehow link what you're talking about to creating jobs, you, again, that competition, you move up, further up the line. Obviously the drought, COVID-19, they would have had major environmental impacts on your industry, but now you've got this bumper season coming through in many parts of the state. So use those statistics to support your application, and then extrapolate into the future. If you give me this amount of money for my project, I'm going to employ another 3 people that will come from outside the area. Potentially they might come with a partner and a couple of kids, which are going to go to the schools, and that's going to sustain the schools as well. So think broader than just what you're proposing on your own little patch, because there are really important flow-ons. Supporting documents. Make sure there's lots of them, but make sure they're relevant. So and only what they ask for. When I first started this gig, they could ask for, you know, they might want 10 different supporting documents and 15 letters of support, etc. I've really noticed over the last couple of years, often they only want 2. They want a budget, project plan, they might want a risk management plan. So they're really cutting down on that extraneous attachments. So if you've got an opportunity to attach a lot, do it. But if they don't ask for it, don't give it to them, because that will just annoy them. If you've got a business plan or a strategic plan for your business, and it's up to date, which is really important, make sure you include that if you can, if you've got the opportunity, attach that to your application. So, so that really shows that this is not just something you've dreamt up overnight. This is a project, your application fits into your overall strategic planning for your business. Don't forget though that whatever that business plan and strategic plan says must include the project. So if your project is talking about, you know, producing a whole range of different products, new crops or whatever, and is going to employ 5 people, and you're going to be investing X amount of dollars, make sure that employment and any operational costs are then reflected in your business plan. So the two things need to talk to each other, and they need to be up to date. Don't underestimate the power of a letter of support. So if you, again, that other analogy I used about employing 5 people, they bring their partners, they bring their kids. If you've got a letter from the P&C or from the school saying how important this project is to our community, because it means the viability of the school, or supporting some other aspect of what's happening in your community, get your politicians on board and get letters of support from them if it's relevant. Get letters from your industry peak body that support what you do. Basically, what you're trying to tell the funder is you've got this really broad range of supporters who all think that what you're doing is really good. A lot of people start to get a bit nervous when you start talking about lobbying your politicians, but I always say that's what they're there for. They're there to work for us, and they're there to open doors and to support our communities and our projects. So make sure they are across exactly what you're proposing. Get to the point. Got to make it really easy to read and for the funder to get the idea what you're talking about really quickly. Again, you know, they've got thousands of these damn things to read through, so cut to the chase if you can. Use dot points, but don't scrimp on the story. I find dot points are really good because they focus your thinking, and all these online applications now have all got really tight word counts. So if you have dot points, you don't need to go, it all began back in 1974 when so-and-so happened. Cut to the chase, use your dot points, but don't scrimp on the story. Importantly, don't assume that the funding body knows about you, your business, your industry, your region, your community, or your problem. 90% of these guys are based in Sydney or Canberra. They may never have been over the Blue Mountains, so they don't know what it's like to do business at Nyngan or Cobar or Wellington. So you can't make that assumption. And that's where it comes around to telling the story. Spell it out really clearly. And the other point is, you know, don't assume that, and don't assume they care. I mean, which I might sound a bit critical, but they're just doing their job. So they don't have the passion that you have for your project. Spell it out really clearly, really succinctly. Don't treat them like idiots, because again, they're reading your application, they're reading somebody else's, and they're going to be comparing. And what you really want to do is to make sure that your application keeps going into that possible probables pile rather than in the bin. So I know I'm starting to sound like a nag, but it's just so important that you realise you're not in this game on your own. You want to make it really easy for them to say yes. So make sure your application complies on all points and levels, and that comes back to reading those damn guidelines again. If they say attach a letter from X, make sure you attach a letter from X, because they are looking for ways to reduce that 1,000 piles down to potentially, you know, the 15 or 20 projects they might fund. If you don't attach the budget, or you don't answer this question, or you skip something, even accidentally, that gives them a perfect reason for yours to hit the bin rather than go around to the next possible probables. So make sure you just tick every single box. Also try and meet every one of their objectives, and they're found in the guidelines, and outcomes, aims, whatever you want to call them, or as many as possible, because again, they're going to be measuring that on your application against somebody else's. Yeah, no missing information, all the supporting documents, and you don't want to give them an easy opportunity to say no. Very rarely will you, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of times a department will come back and say, oh, by the way, can you tell me a bit more about X, or you forgot to include so-and-so. So you just don't get that second chance. You've got to nail it from the get-go. 10, be innovative. How can you make your project stand out from the crowd, from those other 999 applications? Funding bodies love to see that you've really thought about this problem in a new and different way, rather than just the same old, same old. And what I'm talking about there is there a different way of coming at the problem or your proposal? Is what you're proposing to do different in some way? Are you doing it in a different place, as where you're delivering the project? Are you doing it in a different time, as in it's going to be every Monday for the next 6 months, or it's only done at night, or whatever? So think about how that is different. Are you going to be delivering it with different tools, different ways of getting that outcome? And are you going to partner with somebody differently, rather than just going, oh, it's just me and my mate and we're going to do this? Can you say it's me and my mate, and we've actually got the local lands council that are going to come and help us do this, and plus we've got the CWA doing this, and so you've all of a sudden you've made them go, oh, okay, that's a different way to approach it. So think about it with some fresh eyes to make you stand out again. Be strategic. Back to that point about the business plans and your strategic plans, thinking about how what you're proposing fits into the longer term plans of the business and then integrates with that connectivity. How does it, how do you explain and prove that this is just not some brainstorm you've had overnight, but is some really strategic activity that's going to create jobs or really boost your business or the local community? This is what I want you to think about. Is it compatible if you've got a vision and mission and aims of your business? Is what you're proposing compatible? So if you're a wheat farmer, is all of a sudden you're talking about moving into organic ostrich farming? I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but the funders are going to go, well, how does this work? How do these things fit together? If you were then going to go into, milling of, rare grains or historic grains or organic grains or something, that might make more sense to them, mightn't make sense to you, but you see where I'm coming from as far as saying that everything needs to fit together into the full package. It just exhibits long-term thinking and it shows the funder how you're here for the long haul. Basically, you're really going to hang around for a while with this new product or project. Don't be afraid to think in terms of stage 1 and 2. If I had $1 for every client that came to me and said, got this great idea and all we need is $1.75 million and we'll get it off the ground and it's going to be fantastic. And I say, yep, it's going to be fantastic, absolutely. But the chances of getting a grant for $1.75 million are basically zero. Not saying it's not worth it, but it's just not, they're just not out there. So how about we chunk this down to stage 1, stage 2, maybe there's some concurrent stages you can be working on, but all of a sudden when you make the project into bite-sized pieces, all of these smaller buckets of grant funds all of a sudden become far more applicable to what you're proposing. The other good thing about that, particularly if you talk about, if you brand your project as stage 1 organic ostrich farming, it flags with the funding body, oh, okay, so this is stage 1. They're going to be back knocking on the door potentially in the future for stage 2, stage 3, etc. So you can be ambitious, but you just need to be realistic as well, and maybe think about your project. You really want it happening in the next 18 months, but maybe it is more of a 10-year plan, and be very clearly identify what you can achieve at every stage and why. And that comes down to, not only costs, what you're going to be investing, but what jobs you're going to be creating, what money is going to be pumped back into the business, and sustainability, etc. Things like that. Strategic. Sorry, go, Tim.
Melanie, that all sort of forms part of a business plan, and it sounds like quite a lot of detail. So we're talking sort of more than a plan on a page. To be successful in one of these grants, it's going to be, quite a lot of detail in a business plan.
I think it's reflective of the size of your ask. Should be reflected in the size of the information that you're going to support your application in. If you're only chasing $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever, not saying that they're not worthwhile figures, but often the requirements of the application are far less than if you were chasing $500,000. So yes, if you were doing $500,000, and going back to that example I used in the beginning, sorry, no, I haven't used that one in the beginning. I got a grant for a very small community preschool for $690,000, which has just blew us all away. But they actually had done the full business plan. They had a full funding proposal. They had quotes. They had, all together. I mean, the package was about this thick, but they had done their homework because the ask was that big. Yeah, one-page business plans, I think they're brilliant if they keep you on track. If you're asking for a big whack of money, you're going to have to add some more information than that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Thanks very much. That question was from Alex in Dobbo. So hopefully that's answered your query.
Yep. Okay, great. Strategic partnerships. Who can you partner with? Funding bodies love public-private partnerships? Can you, whatever you're proposing, can you work with the CWA? Is it got an Indigenous element there that the Land Council could come and work with you on? Is it something the school could be involved in? Is it your district? So, you know, I grew up in a district, farming district in Dubbo there that was really quite very cohesive, and we worked on a whole lot of things together. You know, it doesn't mean you all have to agree on everything, but all of a sudden that's a really powerful thing to show a funder, that you've got all these different groups that are going to benefit from your project. I'm the first to admit that complicates it a hell of a lot. It also slows it down a hell of a lot, because you've got to wait for all these people to respond and have their say, etc., etc. But it will actually strengthen your application. Also think about, are there different ways to skin a cat? So projects such as, if, you know, and this may not be relevant to everybody, but if you've got a wastewater problem on your farm, or some sort of output, I've heard of, you know, wastewater has been managed through setting up wetlands. So once you do something like that, you know, you certainly solved your wastewater problem, but all of a sudden you've actually got an environmental project. It's not a pollution project or a waste project, it's an environmental project. So just coming at it from a slightly different angle. I have to speed up here so we get through everything, sorry. Okay, printed applications, make them really easy to read, use white space, you know, that's easy on the eye. Use good English, doesn't have to be academic English, but just grammatically correct. No typos, stick to your word limits. I mean, these are really housekeeping basic things, but they make a difference if yours is very easy to scan through. If you're actually doing a printed application, I really recommend you adding a table of contents with all the reference numbers, so the funder can flick to the table of contents and go, oh, what's their budget? Go to page 17 straight away. It just makes their life easier, and they'll process and retain the information much better. If you can get some really good photos, that will really add power to your application. You know, the old picture paints 1,000 words, or graphics, you know, flow charts, or what do you call them? Oh, can't remember the word, but, you know, pictures. Make it look really professional. And if you've got someone with fresh eyes to proof it, often even, you know, I've been writing grants for a bloody long time, and I'll walk away if I've got the time, I will step away and I'll do something else for a day and then come back to it. And all of a sudden I see, oh, I've missed that, or I've made a mistake there, or whatever. Read the requirements of the submission. If it's a printed application, often they will specify font size, font style, all that sort of pernickety type stuff. But again, it might mean that your application gets up and somebody else's if they've got it wrong. Most grants these days are through online and through Smarty grants. Take it from me, after having learnt the hard way, if you can download the application or cut and paste the application and plop it into a Word document and do all your work in a Word document, save it, you can do your word counts, everything like that. Save the bugger in case your power goes out or the internet goes down, and bugger me, you've lost everything. So, and I've done that before, so that if you don't take away nothing else tonight other than that, you're going to be ahead of where I was a few years ago. Okay, timing is everything. You need to move quickly. I mean, some people, it's like pulling teeth writing a grant application, but I promise you, the sooner you get into it and get working on it, the better. You'll kick yourself later. Allow yourself plenty of time. Don't underestimate the amount of time it takes you to complete, to pull one together, particularly if you've got a lot of supporting documents. If they want quotes, if they want letters of support, all that sort of stuff takes time to gather. We know how slow some tradies can be in getting quotes to you, so get onto that really quickly. And sometimes you've only got, 2 to 3 weeks to submit. I think some of the funding bodies do this on purpose so that they actually limit the amount of people that can apply, but you're really going to have to if you're proposing something big, you're really going to have to be working hard. Look for opportune times to apply and submit, and particularly leading into elections. If you're proposing something big and waiting for big money to come, I would be working on it right now for the 2022 election. We've got federal and state elections in 2022. Politicians are going to start campaigning mid next year, if not before. I think I heard something on the news the other night about the federal election being brought forward. So you need to be conscious of those time frames if you're going to be doing some lobbying. Again, this is a political activity, and you need to get what you're proposing, that application working for you, and you need to get your pollies working for you, because you just don't know, like that little preschool, you don't know how, you've got this mystery bucket that's not even a funding program, that all of a sudden they want to make an announcement. And if you've got this really great application ready to go. And that was the point I made about out of round funding, about proactive money. Develop, if you've got time and you're proposing something big, start building this document. There mightn't be a perfect grant application open for you at the moment, but start building it so that you've got this terrible word, shovel-ready project. I can't emphasise that enough, because we just don't know how those political systems work. But in my experience, sometimes these mystery buckets are there, and if you've got this really professional presentation, project proposal ready to go, who's to say they're not going to grab yours, and it'll be happy days. Be patient. It feels like hurry up and wait. You bust your butt to meet the deadline, and then all of a sudden the silence is deafening. If it goes on for a while, read your guidelines. Sometimes they say in there how quickly they'll respond, but I followed up with a phone call to the funding body saying what's happening, and they'll say, look, it's on the minister's desk and they'll be announcing it in a month or something. So it just gives you an idea of what's happening. Also be prepared for the fact that sometimes, because they feel like it, they will cancel grant programs even after you've submitted. So that's pretty heartbreaking stuff, but it does actually happen sometimes. And I've certainly found over the last 6 months, many of the annual programs have not been offered, have been offered, and then when I've gone back in to look at them, they've gone due to COVID-19. The money's not there anymore. So it's a bit of a fluid space here at the moment. Okay, quickly, think about your application as a repository for every piece of information about your project. You put a lot of work into this. You've done budgets, you've got quotes, you've done all your thinking around it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you're not successful with one grant, let's give it another crack with that same application. However, you have to customise. So you have to, don't make that mistake where you forget to change the name of something or something's out of date. But don't feel like you've got to start from scratch again. So this can be fun, can be hard work, but you really are drilling in the detail. But it can be fun, particularly if you start to get a bit excited about a creative solution. And the money's going to look fabulous in your bank account as much as the next person, so you've got to give it a crack. So where to look for the money? I'm sorry I'm going so fast here. I have on my website, I have a blog which you can sign up for, and I share whatever I see, I share on the website. And it's got all the links and just basically a summary of the information. You're welcome to sign up for that. Don't spam you. Sometimes I'm sharing 1 or 2 grants a day, and then it might be quiet for a week. So it will ebb and flow a bit. All your industry newsletters, association, your regional development groups sometimes advertise grants. Your MP, Grant Connect and Department of Industry are your federal bodies. And I'm going to not put all this in a one-pager for Tim to distribute to, so don't sort of feel like you've got to madly write this down. The Community Grants Hub is obviously, more for community grants. Google newspapers, keep your ear to the ground. Okay, so out there at the moment, I've just grabbed 4 to make you think about what's on offer. You may have seen some media around the Future Drought Fund. It's got very much a natural resource management focus for farmers. It's open to everybody. You can apply for up to $200,000. It closes in 2 weeks. It's all about drought, how to make your farm more sustainable, but obviously from an NRM perspective. Another interesting, weird sort of one, the Australian Geographic Society has a small one, $5,000, and they fund basic sort of research, environmental initiatives, adventure, community. Don't think you've just got to wait for the Rural Assistance Authority to come up with money or down your traditional lines. Coles Nurture Fund is one to keep out an eye out for next year. It's all about new products developed off farm, supply chain stuff, process development. Nice big whack of money, $500,000 up to, and you still get to retain your intellectual property, so you don't hand that over to Coles. Jetstar and Virgin, I know the world has changed as far as travel is concerned, but those sorts of corporates, and I want you to think about others that might be relevant, when they provide funding, often it's in kind. So a lot of it is about, you know, $15,000 worth of domestic travel or international travel. So if you're out doing marketing type stuff, that's as good as cash in the bank. Okay, so it's over to you. I'm sorry I had to whiz through all of that so fast, and I'm happy to answer some questions.
That's great, Melanie. Thanks so much. We to time, and what a lot, some great tips there. Thanks very much to that. I'm just going to share my screen quickly now.
So I'll stop mine. Yep.
So I should happen automatically there, and yep. Everyone should be able to see my screen there at directing everyone back to Slido, slido.com /grants or #grants. And just to answer some quick feedback, it'll only take you 5 minutes or so. And while everyone's doing that, Melanie, we might take some questions.
Sure.
And the first one comes in from Angus. Angus is in Gresford, and he'd like to know, are there other professionals like you out there that can help with grant writing? There obviously a lot of small businesses may not have the time to do this. So
Yep.
is there people based locally, or do you help people from right across the state? How's it all work?
I've worked with everybody from people from Longreach to Merimbula. So I mean, as you know, with technology, you don't have to do the face-to-face stuff now. If Angus Googles obviously grant writers, that will bring up a whole range of different people. I find, I mean, I'm just little old me charging away in my home office here in Mudgee. So I'm a small person. There are big corporates that do it, or larger corporate companies based in metro areas. I would recommend contacting, to look locally, contact your council. If they've got an economic development officer, to council, sometimes they will help you write grants, and or they will know of people locally if you wanted to work with someone locally. Similar, if you've got a tourism, I know that's probably a little bit away from ag, but picking their brain, if you've got a tourism organisation, your local tourism body, often they will know of people who write grants as well. Yep. Yeah,
great. And it's probably a bit of I think that'll really cover off on Angus's question. So thanks for answering that one. The next one is from Anonymous, and Anonymous has asked, how it might be a how long's a bit of string question, as I said, but how many hours do you need to be putting into these type of applications?
Again, it depends on your ask. So if you're asking for $100,000 versus $5,000, if it's a $5,000 grant, 2 good solid days of writing and collating and refreshing should knock that over. Again, it's hard to say, it's a piece of string question. If it's $100,000 or more, you're looking at a good week. And you mightn't be working that whole 40 hours on it, but you might be waiting for something to come back, or a report from someone, or a letter, or whatever. So yeah, your whole writing time might be that, but it's just all that collating of all the extra stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of time, isn't it?
The more time, the more less pressure it'll be for yourself.
Yeah, gotcha. And you mentioned really on in the piece that sometimes it might be worth giving, the funding body a call before you submit your application. Is that a call? Is there an opportunity there to pitch a project to them?
No, No, that they really they really play it pretty close to their chest, because they can't be seen to be preferencing you over another applicant. So they're not going to tell you whether your idea is fabulous and is sure to get up. They might tell you whether your idea is compliant or matches what they want to do, but that will be it. So they won't give you anything that will benefit you over another applicant, but they will, you know, hopefully if you're nice to them, they'll tell you whether you're on the right track.
Yeah, great, that's good. And I've just got a text message here from one of the heads of the different young farmer groups from around the state, and they've sort of said they're always looking to apply for, you know, events-based funding, but always difficult to know exactly how many people are coming. So when they're trying to get quotes and put all their proposal together, it's a variable, so many variable costs. What have you got any tips there?
Yep, sure. So if your ideal number was 100, and you know, you wanted 100 for your event, and but you only got 50 turn up, what I would be recommending early on, like when you could see how it was tracking, I'd go back to the funding body and say, we want to submit what's called a budget variation. We said we wanted X amount of dollars for this 100 people. Let's just pick a figure and say 10,000, but we're only going to need 5,000. But have I got a deal for you? We want to use this other 5,000 to take people on farm visits, and we want to add to their education, and we want this guest speaker to be flown in from New Zealand, and we want to do this. So if you're, I always go for your best case scenario. If you're not going to nail it, gee whiz, how else can you spend this money to really put on a fantastic event that will excite the funding body and give the ministers a chance to come and, you know, swan about, but still adds really great value to your audience. So it's budget variation.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Hopefully that's answered their query over there. That kind of wraps up all the questions we've had come through. So just a reminder to everyone that feedback is really important to us. We're a government-funded program, and without the current round of DPI funding, we too might be applying for some grants, Melanie, here at the Young Farmer Business Program. But feedback is incredibly important to us. We really appreciate your honesty. I can see some people have taken the chance to go to slido.com and enter the hashtag grants and give us some feedback and tell us what you thought. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as we have this evening. Melanie, I think you've summed up the little I knew about the grant writing world really well, and you've taught me so much. So I hope the audience feels the same.
My pleasure, and I'm happy to. We'll get my email and that contact details. So if anybody's got any other follow-up questions or just want to have a quick chat, I'm more than happy to do that.
That's great. That's great and very generous of you.
No problem.
So until I don't have any more, Melanie, how about you?
Okay. Yeah, no, all good. I think there's going to be a lot of different sort of money coming out over the next probably 6 to 8 months. So when I say different, I mean just different, not your normal business, straight down the line business money. So I really encourage you to think a bit left of centre as far as what you want to do and how you can achieve it to be able to fit into those grant applications.
That's great. That's great. And just before I was just about to wrap up, we've got one more question flown through. They've scraped in by the skin of their teeth, and it is it's a very specific one. So Melanie, you might not be able to help, but we'll see how we go. If farmers have an erosion problem that's significant, is there a specific place they should start to look for help?
Yep. So have a look at that natural resource management project. grant application that closes at the end of the month. Not a great lead time. Obviously your land care, anything federally to do with agriculture. Then start to think about, are there community groups that could come and solve the problem for you? So could you get just, you know, you're going to think I'm on drugs, but I'm not. But could you get the ag's subject at the local high school to come and adopt your erosion gully as their project for the next year, to be working on how to redeem the erosion? Are there universities you could partner with that would like to use your bloody great hole in the ground as a study, you know, part of their trials or something or other? Don't just wait for money to come up to fix erosion. Think about who else may be interested in your problem and would love to have a working site to come and try and remediate. I hope that helps. But yeah, just get on old Google and start looking. Yep. But yeah, federal ag.
That's great. That's great. And I'll just add, from time to time, I have seen that the different local land services, depending on where you are in the state and what local land service region you're in, from time to time, they offer some small grants that may be able to help with different land care things and issues like erosion and salinity.
Yep.
So,
again, I'd chunk it down. If it's a bloody great hole in the ground, I'd be actually looking at, okay, well, what section can I address now? Yes, I would need to fix the whole thing, but I might not be able to afford it, or I can't get money to fix the whole thing. Can I get money for fencing? Can I get, next bucket, I'll get tree planting. Next bucket, I'll get, you know, rocks or whatever to, you know, or put stumps or however you fix erosion, rather than just saying I want it all and I want it now.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Break it down into small chunks. That your answer to that question's got me thinking. Could it be the case that some community groups don't dream big enough with their proposals? You know?
I think community groups dream big, but when it comes to actually putting the application in, it frightens the pants off them. Because it's paperwork and it's quotes and it's budgets and you know, that's who does that for fun, you know, other than weird people like me. So yeah, I think sometimes it takes a younger farmer or some new blood in there that can go, yeah, we can do this. But again, chunk it down. If you've got a great big application, okay, this week I'm going to work on, or today I'm going to work on page 1, page 2, page 3, and actually start to think about, you know, well, Tim's really good at finance. Tim, can you knock us up a budget? And somebody else is good at this. Can you do, and share the load? But again, you know, you've got to be ambitious, but you've got to be realistic as well.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Thanks very much, Melanie. We've got a couple of minutes over, so thanks so much for giving us your time this evening, and it's greatly appreciated.
Good luck, everyone.
And so we might say goodbye.
Okay.
Melanie's details will come out in an email to everyone that's registered. So thanks very much, Melanie, and until next time, goodbye.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.